Hello, I wanted to briefly talk over the Abigail Adams and John Adams correspondence with you. You've got a great section from a film that I've been showing for a long time where two actors read through the letters as well, which I think is great. They're very pointed in how, particularly Abigail, and how she reads this letter. So I appreciate that. But I wanted to talk through some of the key points of the letter, and I asked you some questions here above the correspondence to kind of think about as you're reading the letters. So this is the probably easily most famous of the letters that she's going to write, where she's writing to John Adams and she tells him that he should remember the ladies. And she's really using the rhetoric of the war, right? She's saying, hey, you are talking about liberty and freedom. And you know what? Like, maybe you should like give some of that to us too. Now, it's important to remember that she's not saying we want the right to vote, we want ownership of property. So she's not feminist in the way that we might expect her to be feminist in the 21st century. But for the 18th century, late 18th century, this is revolutionary when she's saying, hey, remember us. And then she even says here, we're determined to have a rebellion. We are not going to hold ourselves bound to any laws in which we have no voice or representation. That's really using the rhetoric, of the revolution. Those ideas of representation, right? That we need to have people reflect our interest in political places. And then he responds, I cannot but laugh as to your extraordinary code of laws. I cannot but laugh. And so while he initially seems dismissive of her, right? He says, wow, we knew this was going to create some struggle. We, expected it from, students and children and enslaved people, but we did not expect this from women, right? But and then he's kind of patronizing. He says, it's a rather coarse compliment, but you are so saucy. I won't blot it out, right? He says, I know I can't just let this go away, that you're going to continue to want to have this conversation with me. Then he says, we know better to repeal our masculine systems. Although they are in full force, they are little more than theory. We dare not exert our power in its full latitude. We are obliged to go fair, softly, and in practice, we are the subjects. So maybe a little bit of an eye roll there, right? Because again, he's kind of placating her and he's saying, that we really are in charge, that you really have some power. And what he's referring to is the power that women have as wives, which we've acknowledged exists. And we've seen it in various ways as deputy husband, or again, when women are managing the farm and there's that shift from yours to ours. So it's not inaccurate. They do have that power. But she's like, we already have that power. We want some more kind of tangible, actual power. So in that respect, he doesn't completely dismiss her, but it's still patronizing. Her response, I think, is a little bit of a mic drop, if you will, right? She says, you're talking about, peace and goodwill to men, emancipating nations, but you still insist on absolute power for wives, right? You're talking about all this stuff, all this great stuff you're doing, but you're not actually doing it when it comes down to it, right? You need to actually walk the walk, she's saying. And then she kind of, puts out a little bit of a threat there, right? She's like, remember, arbitrary power, like most of the things which are very hard, very liable to be broken, notwithstanding all your wise laws and maxims, we have it in our power not only to free ourselves, but to subdue our masters, right? Fine, you're not going to do this, we'll do it ourselves. And then she puts another little kind of dig in there. She's like, and without violence, throw both your natural and legal authority at our feet. You all had to have a war to get this done. We aren't going to do that. We'll do it. We will have our own rebellion. We will break through this. So we'll maybe take us 150 years if we want to connected to voting for some women. But still, she says, right, we're going to do this without violence. So again, right, she clearly isn't backing down, as he acknowledged in that second letter. And one last thing to remind you, again, as I said earlier, while she's not necessarily saying, right, we want the right to vote, we want ownership of property, the fact that she's saying you need to think about us as women in the same way that you've changed laws for men, you say for everyone, but we understand that it really is only impacting free white men. We want some of that too, she says. And so that's what makes this letter, to use the word of the time too, revolutionary. All right, I hope you're doing well. If you've got any questions, you can leave those in the general discussion board that we have in the class. Take care.